Hey, Next Levelers, Bob Gibbons here. Excited to have you along with another show of the Next Level Show. We have an exciting show today. Gabe Draper with Factur is with us. Factur is a fascinating company. We'll talk about it a lot over the next hour. But, everybody in business is most concerned about sales, right? Nobody goes into the business thinking I'm not going to have any sales, but getting those sales is sometimes the challenge. And in fact, whenever I talk to my friends who have their own companies, the single most important thing that everybody's most concerned about is, how do I get sales? How do I make sure that my pipeline's full all the time? And that's the biggest fear. So today that is the topic, because Factur is an expert at doing that. And not for everybody in the world, they're pretty niche. So we'll talk about that. But the lessons that we can learn from what they're doing for their clients are things that we can implement on our businesses as well. So, Gabe, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, listeners, check out Factur at bethefactur.com. That's Factur. And first question is, am I messing that name up? Is that the right way to say it? Or
yeah, you definitely messed it up. It's Factur.
Of course.
No worries. Maybe that's a branding problem for us.
No, I don't know that it is. So Factur.
Factur. Yeah. So yeah. The origin of the name is, it's the very center of the word manufacturing.
Ah.
So we spell it with a U, which is a little different, but it's kind of a nod to our niche.
Yes.
In that we help manufacturing suppliers.
Gotcha.
So we, it's the center of the word manufacturing, but we feel like sales is the center of most manufacturing businesses, or should be.
Or any business.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, but your target, your ideal customer is somebody that's selling to a manufacturer.
Correct.
So selling what?
Yeah, so our niche, our demographic is super niche. And most people, unless you're in it, you don't really understand it. But for us, it's kind of like a blue ocean that nobody's navigating through.
Mm-hmm.
So we help any company with a product or service that they sell to a manufacturing operation. So job shops, engineering firms, automation companies, components, equipment, raw materials.
So you don't care if they're selling a product or a service.
Mm-mm.
If they're doing that into a manufacturer, that's your potential client.
Yeah, correct. So their target is really the thing that defines who we help, people that sell to these manufacturing plants. And most people don't view that as an industry.
Uh-huh.
They view that as like the automation industry or the metals industry or the plastics industry. We kind of view all that supply chain as one industry, because a lot of their challenges are the same, and they're targeting the same companies.
Interesting. So what they're selling doesn't matter. Who they're selling to, I mean, obviously manufacturers, but as far as the manufacturer manufacturing a car or a toaster or you name it, you don't really care. It's just anything that somebody manufactures qualifies them to be a potential customer.
Yeah, for the most part. We're not all things to all people within this niche. There's certainly outliers that companies we couldn't help. But we're targeting automotive, we're targeting medical, we're targeting aerospace, we're targeting oil and gas, we're targeting consumer products. So it's pretty broad.
Interesting. It seems like that would be an enormous market, and yet in the media anyway, we hear how manufacturing in the United States is dying. Is that really true?
No, not at all.
Really?
Yeah.
So fill us in, clear it up.
In the media.
Yeah, never believed that.
Except for on this show.
Oh, I don't know that I'd be called the media. Certainly not by the media. So, really, it's not. Do you have any stats? I didn't even ask you about this in advance, so I'm kind of hitting you flat-footed here.
No.
But
not really.
Okay.
You could look at different things, and you could probably make a case to sell a newspaper or something that says manufacturing is dying. You might look at, I don't know, employment or...
Yeah, I would think employment would be going down as far as that sector goes, just because of automation and other things. But the total output, gross product, so to speak, of that industry, I would bet would be going up.
Yeah.
In spite of that.
Right now it's booming. Most people are doing real well right now.
Now, do you only serve people that are selling to manufacturers in the U.S. or worldwide?
We're probably 85% selling into the U.S. We've got some clients that sell internationally.
Okay.
Obviously, there's some challenges there, but
are your clients, the people that are selling into the manufacturer, are they typically a U.S. domestic company, or are they from all over the world?
All over the world. Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, mainly U.S., but we've got international clients that that come to us to help penetrate the U.S. market.
Interesting. All right, so we've clearly defined sort of who you're helping, the people selling services and products to manufacturers, but what is the service that you're actually providing them?
So we've got a handful of services, but our mission as a company is to help these suppliers find customers and grow revenue. So we've got a few different services. We kind of have two sides of the business. One is where we started. We've got a network of networking groups throughout the Midwest and Texas, and we're expanding that throughout the U.S. But essentially what that is that's a membership type service where you join and there's no competition in a group. So, an injection molder and a sheet metal fabricator and an automation provider who all sell to the same types of companies can look out for opportunities for each other, make introductions, share leads, collaborate on projects.
Interesting.
So that's one side of the business, and that's really geared for the company to go out and hunt. It's a tool for them to go out and hunt for new customers themselves.
And how many people will you have in that group?
We've got a few hundred across the different groups.
And so so do you have a chapter, so to speak, for Dallas and another one for a different city?
Yeah. So we've got one here in Dallas, which is doing real well. Meets over in Las Colinas.
So how many people would be in the Dallas chapter?
I think that one's new. That's our newest group. I think we've got 25 companies.
Wow, that's still pretty good size.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then we're launching shortly. We'll be launching a Garland group. There's a lot of
manufacturers there.
Manufacturing there. And then probably toward the end of the year, we'll launch a Fort Worth group.
Interesting. And so you go to these groups, sort of lead them, facilitate them?
I don't. We've got a Dallas market leader here
Okay.
who does that. The other side of our business is our prospecting services division. That's kind of what I head up. And that's really geared toward companies who either don't have the people or don't have the expertise internally to go to market and basically hunt for new customers. So we've developed a data set and a process and tools and people that one guy called it the Purple Squirrel, which is a funny.
I thought it was the purple cow.
Yeah, no, this is the Purple Squirrel. So he described it as somebody who has high sales aptitude but also high technical aptitude, and that's kind of where we fit in. These are very technical people that we're targeting with very technical needs, and it's very technical sales. So a lot of people just aren't equipped for that. So that's kind of where we shine.
Yeah, I would think that would be kind of a hard person to find. I mean, are they typically engineers?
Yeah.
Or really? Okay.
Yeah, more times than not, we're dealing with engineering.
So an engineer who can sell.
Oh, you mean our people?
Yeah.
Some of them, yeah. We don't look for degrees or letters after their name on their signature. We really look for somebody who was a good cultural fit for us. Hungry, humble, and smart is kind of what we look for.
Interesting.
So
how do you find somebody like that? I mean, is it just referrals from other people you know, or is there some sort of test that you give them to see if they're going to be able to be technical and be able to sell? Yeah,
so we've got a process, a hiring process that has evolved that we think works pretty well for us. But yeah, most of them come through referrals. I mean, through our network, we know a decent amount of people, and we either people come to us or people say, hey, you should talk to this guy, he's looking, and we put them through our process. But yeah, we do assessments, we do internal and external third-party interviews, we do shadows, we do working interview. So we put them through the ringer.
Wow. That would be hard. It's kind of funny. One of my good friends, I used to go to church with her. Her oldest son was an engineer, and when he came out of school, he went to work for Texas Instruments. And so he was a technical sales guy. Sounds like similar maybe to what you're talking about. But the thing that cracked me up so much is she was such the proud mother that he got this job, and he was going to be making a really good base salary, and he was going to get 6% of profits. And I was like, wait a minute, 6% of profits? She goes, yes. I said, profits of what? And she goes, of the company. I said, he's going to get 6% of the profits of Texas Instruments? Are you kidding me? And there was another guy standing with us who actually had worked at TI for like 30 years at that point. And he's like, dang, I'd like to have that deal.
Yeah, me too.
And of course, it was a 6% of what he sold, of course. Yeah. But she was a little too proud of a mother at the moment. It was really funny, really cute, but yeah, he's doing really well. But that's not exactly the kind of person that you would expect just walks in the door every day. That really takes a very niche person for a very niche position.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how do you find your client? I mean, I know you say you have all kinds of tools to help them find the people they ought to be calling, but how do you find your client?
Multi-touch approach. The best ones are referrals. We host events, networking events, kind of just an open thing for anybody in the manufacturing industry to come to, and we meet a lot of people through that. Relationship building, I guess, is the main thing. We engage with people, and we're not trying to go for a hard close, convert you now or disqualify you. We just try to meet people where they're at, find out what their goals are for their business. If we fit into that, great. If not, we're pretty persistent about follow-up. We'll touch base every quarter just to see if anything's changed, if things are going well. And we kind of plug in when they need us. Some people, we talk for a couple of years before they need us. Other people, we meet them and, we're kicking it off the next week.
So are these clients of yours typically going to be pretty well-established companies that have been around a while, or is it sort of a new company trying to break into a new sector?
There's not a typical. I would say our sweet spot is in the small to medium size, more established businesses.
Okay.
But we've got some global public companies that don't have this expertise in house that hire us to do the hunting for them. And we've also got some startups that are run on fumes and startup capital. That we're selective about those. We need to.
Yeah, you got to make sure you're going to get paid.
Yeah, I've got a toddler he needs diapers, and so we can't do stuff for free. But we really look for good fit. Like, are we going to make an impact on their business? Are they going to be fun for us to work with?
Right.
Is this going to be a good long-term mutual relationship?
Interesting. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back after these messages. We are back talking to Gabe Draper of Factur. Said it right that time. Good job. I'm a quick study. Check them out online, bethefactor.com, but don't mess up and spell it the way it sounds. It's Factur. So, Gabe, you guys started, and you have a partner too, by the way. In starting this.
Yeah, Caleb Townsend, my buddy. We're buddies from church. We started about 6 years ago.
Oh, nice. You don't hear about entrepreneurism starting in church too often.
You should.
Yeah, you should. That's kind of cool, actually. So what were you doing before this? I mean, let me ask that a different way. What was the first company you started?
So we started a few, piddly little companies in college. Just, I went to Baylor and majored in entrepreneurship. And, it was a very creative time, and everybody's, bouncing ideas off, and everybody's, trying to get a spark to be more than a spark and get a little flame. So we started a few, we started an advertising company and a catering company that were started as a generous term. It was more of just,
had a few jobs.
Yeah, guys sitting around drawing up logos and calling people and, trying to file for your business license and things. But they were never serious ventures that got anywhere. And then I had after college, worked in real estate here in Dallas for a few years, and then my dad and grandfather had a machine shop up in Indiana that they had started while I was in college, and they had some health issues, and they just needed some help with the business. So I went up to Indiana to help them out with the machine shop, and it was kind of in a rough spot when I came in. Just a lot of issues. It's a tough business, and they were starting out and they were having health issues. So coming in, we had a lot of work to do. So just rolled up the sleeves and, learned everything I could about the business. And we got it to a pretty good place. The main issue we had in that business was we had a lot of the infrastructure we needed to survive, but we didn't have enough revenue. We didn't have a good customer mix. So really chased that, but really just kind of focused on growing revenue. And we did that, and we found that with oil and gas down in Houston. Then times were booming, and they just needed what we did in that business was we did CNC machining.
What does CNC mean?
Computer numerically controlled.
Okay.
So it cuts metal, and it's programmed by a computer.
Okay.
So you program it, and a tool comes in, and it whittles away at the metal or plastic or whatever material, primarily metal, and into usable parts. So think like engine block or a surgical instrument.
Okay.
Or a race car part. But we did a lot in oil and gas and motorsports. Was kind of our main two niches.
I would think that there would have been that service available closer to Houston than Indiana. How did you convince these people to work with you when that you were so far away?
Yeah, so we got involved in higher volume type of work than what oil and gas typically needs.
Okay.
And I think that there's like 5,000 machine shops in Houston.
Oh my
in a good
goodness.
time. So, the herd gets thinned in the bad times, but as I did, which we'll talk about later. But, there's 5,000 machine shops down in Houston, so there's no lack of like spindle time as they call it in Houston. But they're used to really high dollar, low volume parts, and to price a low dollar, high volume part, they were just overpricing it.
Okay.
So we could make them up in Indiana, ship them down to Houston or Alvarado or Dallas every week, and we were making really good money. So we got the business to a really good place. Problem with that was it was 72% oil and gas.
Yeah.
And we knew that. I mean, it's no secret that oil and gas is a fickle customer.
Very volatile.
Yeah. So we just didn't have enough runway. So we went from really doing well and doing about double the net income that your typical machine shop does, and running 3 shifts and hiring and buying machines, to within about a month of that situation, laying everybody off, scheduling an auction, finishing out orders.
That fast?
That fast. It turned that fast. And
oh my gosh.
if we'd had another 6 months of runway, then we were working hard on diversifying, but we just didn't have the runway. So it's a blessing in hindsight. One, that was a tough business. So if I look at long-term career for myself, I think I'm on a better path now. All of our team, that's probably what I'm most proud of, is where they're at now. The guys that I had, they're all blossoming in other places now. So that's a blessing for them.
Yeah.
But also, just financially, I mean, it was a hardship and still is to some degree. But if you gotta go out of business, going out quick is the way to go. Tear the Band-Aid off, shut it down, rather than a slow bleed out. It could have been a lot worse. So.
There's actually a term for that. I forget. Is it fail? I'm forgetting what it was. It's not fail fast. It's something else. But there's a lot of talk in the startup community about that, and that if it's not working, kill it quickly, get it over with, move on to the next thing. Don't hang on to it and milk it, and just do everything in the world to try and make this thing work.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, in a month, your whole world changes in a month, and you moved to Indiana. So, for you personally, did this just like totally blow up your world? And what did you do for income, or did you have any income at this point?
Yeah, pretty much. It definitely changed our world quickly. When we decided to close down was like 3 or 4 months before my son was born.
Oh no.
It changed it. Everything changed. We didn't really know how it was going to play out. We didn't know. I looked around after I decided, we're closing this business. I kind of looked around trying to figure out, what am I going to do? Am I going to go work for somebody? I'm not really wired to work for somebody, but I'll do what I got to do. So I looked into some job opportunities, thought about buying another shop, or I didn't really want to start from zero. Over, I think, 9 or 10 years that I was in the business, just immense amount of energy to get it, kind of turn it around and get it to where we had it. Right. I didn't have 2 of those in me at that point. So starting again in that business didn't make sense. But with Factur, we had actually started that in about 2 years before I closed Draper Manufacturing.
Oh.
So we had started it as our referral group, like I mentioned earlier, there in Indianapolis, and it was a side business. It was kind of a lead generator for Caleb's business and for mine to generate leads for us, and we made a little money on the side. So I had about a 6-month window where I was wrapping up Draper Manufacturing, getting the auction, just tying up loose ends. So I had about 6 months where I was trying to figure out, when this 6 months is over, what am I going to do? So one of those things that I was trying was, I had extra time. We had about, after we decided to close down, we had about 6 weeks, I think, of where we were, finishing out orders and kind of operationally winding things down. After that, I had a lot of time on my hands. So I just worked on Factur. At the time, we were called Manufacturing Referral Network,
Okay.
MRN, but we rebranded a few years ago. But I was working on the business, and it wasn't enough for me to live on, but I just kept working on it. And it was growing quick, so I thought, well, I'll keep doing this, and if a job or an opportunity that's better than this comes along, I'll do that. And it just got to a point where I thought, I guess I'm doing this full time.
It just snuck up on you.
Yeah.
Turned into a business.
Yeah. And as we focused more on it, the vision grew and the need that we in the market became more clear. And then shortly after that, Caleb came on full time, and we've just been, gunslinging ever since.
It's funny you say that because, I got laid off 15 years ago, and I'd been in the commercial real estate business 20 years, never been unemployed, never, had a day I didn't have a paycheck, and had benefits and all that. It was great. Well, then that job ended, no income, no benefits, all the rest. And so I sort of, quote, switched sides, because I used to always work for landlords, and I switched sides and only worked for the users of the real estate, so the companies and the nonprofits that lease or buy the buildings to occupy for their corporate or nonprofit use. So I started doing that, and I did that for a while, thinking it was sort of an interim thing until the next real job came along. Mm-hmm. This was just sort of the placeholder. And I woke up one day and realized, wait a minute, I've been doing this as long as any job I've ever had. And now I've been doing it for like 14, 15 years. So it's my next closest was like 8.5 years at one place. So this has become almost double the length of time of anything I did, any individual job I had before. And of course, now I would never think to do anything else. Mm-hmm. And it's turned into a real thing, right? So I long ago quit thinking about what's coming next, because I don't want anything next. This is what I want to do and I like doing. But that kind of sneaks up on you. And it's interesting when you stop thinking about what's the next thing and you're just thinking about what you're doing. It kind of takes some pressure off. Yeah. It's kind of nice, actually.
Yeah. What's the phrase they say, burn your ships?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've heard that, but I guess, and I'm going to butcher this, but I guess in naval warfare that a general would his army would leave the ship to go into battle, and he'd burn it because, you're committed, you're all in, you got to win this battle. Yep. There's no turning back.
You can't leave.
And I think in both business, I think I realized I reached that point where it was like, all right, we're all in. So I think you got to be, because if you've got a backup plan, there's just so much focus and resources and energy required to get a business off the ground and then compete right. and then thrive, that if you're not all in, you're not gonna go through that.
Well, it's interesting to me is, to go all in and yet to look at it as a separate entity and a separate asset from yourself. So, it's the classic working on your business instead mm-hmm. of in your business. And sometimes that gets kind of hard. So, do you own the company or does the company own you, kind of thing? And so when you're all in, it's sometimes hard to kind of separate yourself and look at it as a separate thing from yourself and to build something that can run on its own without you, which of course is, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, that's the ideal. It can run if I leave for a month or 2 months or mm-hmm. whatever. I'm not there for sure. And, usually in a startup, it takes quite a while to get there, mm-hmm. but that's certainly the goal. Mm-hmm. So hopefully one of these days I'll figure that out. You can give me some advice, I'm sure. Yeah,
in the last business, I was almost there. We're not close to that yet. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm not going to put it on autopilot. Like I want to be in the trenches every day. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But we want to get to a point where more time is working on the business rather than in there.
Yeah, of course. All right, we're going to take another quick break. Be right back after this.
Did you know DFW is home to a leading nationwide seed accelerator? Code Launch is an annual competition of startup software ideas produced by Frisco-based Code Authority. Attention, all technology startups in Texas, across the USA and around the globe. Apply through May 31st for your chance to win a professional hackathon team, win thousands of dollars in seed services, and pitch on our stage with your new code in hand. Apply now through May 31st at codelaunch.com.
Welcome back to the Next Level Show. This is Bob Gibbons. We're talking to Gabe Draper of Factur. Check him out, BeTheFactor.com, spell Factor Factur. So Gabe, when you started Factur then, It sounded like it started off sort of as a networking company, managing these networking groups around the country. And then you started adding other services to it. And you talked about having, you help companies find the, who they should be targeting and helping actually get into them. Go into a little more detail on exactly what that looks like.
On our prospecting services?
Yeah, prospecting.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got a few different services within that based on need and budget. But essentially, kind of the overlying simple explanation of our process is we've got a data team, and they go through all of our data, and they look at each manufacturing company in the U.S. that matches the client's criteria. And they qualify or disqualify those companies from a research standpoint. Once they qualify it, then they flag it as a prospect. And then they go in and they do research on who are the contacts at. We typically target at the plant level, at a specific plant, sometimes at the corporate level, but mainly a lot of the decisions happen at the plant where the manufacturing is taking place. They'll go in there and they'll look for people with titles or LinkedIn profiles that look like they might be the decision maker. And then we pursue those people through phone and email and text message and sometimes digital ads, and try to build awareness, and then try to get a conversation going, and then try to find out, is there any need or potential that our client could help with? If so, then we dig a little deeper and try to qualify that based on budget and technical aspects and time frame, decision-making process, and all that. And then once it's a qualified opportunity, we've got all those check boxes checked, then we pass it off to our client, and they take it from there.
So then they actually start calling the client, the prospect manufacturer, to try and sell their services or their products to that person. But you've done all the research to figure out which ones, who's the right person, maybe even talk to the right person to really see that there's a real qualified opportunity here.
Yeah, most of the time we've had a good bit of conversation with the prospect. We do it all under their brand. So from the prospect standpoint, it looks like business development's handing it off to an account manager.
Okay.
And that handoff is usually a quote or a meeting or further more in-depth conversation that we're not qualified to handle.
So really you're doing all the development before that account manager in the actual company is ready to take over and run with it. But so you're really doing sales up to that point, because you're identifying their needs, trying to make sure there's a match with your client's services or products. And so, yeah, it sounds like, so you're really doing the sales pipeline, the sales funnel. And then when it looks like it's really going to turn into, an actual transaction, that's when it gets handed off to your client.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we do ongoing follow-up. A lot of those conversations don't turn into a next step right away. A lot of that's timing. Maybe they don't have a project or a need right now. Typically we'll do quarterly follow-up where we'll touch them each quarter to see if anything's changed, see if any new opportunities have come up.
So your people in-house, you have the research division that's doing all the research on the manufacturers, but then you also have people that are then making all those calls, or are those the same people?
No, different people.
Different people,
yeah,
because they have different skills?
Yeah, we're big on process. So, if you want to do something well and scale it and have repeatable results or consistency, you got to have a good process.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of our secret sauce is, in the process and the tools and the automation that we've built. But yeah, we follow a process, and one of the critical things is splitting up the research and the calls. Because I think one of the challenges most people have is they have one guy who does all that, and calls are definitely the least fun thing to do for my guy's week. If he's got 10 things to do, the calls are going to be the 10th thing, and that's going to be Friday at 4:45, and he's going to make a call and say, "Well, I did my call."
That doesn't work.
Yeah. So we just take that away. So when there's nothing else to do, all you're doing is making calls and managing your pipeline, then it's really not that big of a deal. You get used to it, and that's what you're there for. There's no hiding places.
Yeah. Interesting. So, you guys have to be very process driven, because if you have, a whole collection of clients that are trying to sell to a whole collection of manufacturers that you're researching on their behalf, and you have multiple people within the company that are handing it off from research to the calling, then handing that off to the client, how do you manage all that stuff just physically?
We primarily use Salesforce.
Okay.
We use a bunch of tools that bolt onto Salesforce, but we've built a machine, if you will.
It's like an ecosystem.
Yeah. And there's a lot of workflows that support it and keep the data clean and keep the process flowing, and flag back data and kick it back to the data team, stuff like that. A lot of stuff we geek out on, but most people don't care. They just want opportunities.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, data's, we're sales guys, but we increasingly are dealing with data problems rather than sales problems. So data's a big part of it.
Yeah, I got to believe it is, because I mean, you're trying to put together so many different pieces that have to all work together to really make any kind of sense and any kind of an impact on behalf of your clients. And ultimately, you got to make an impact for your clients, or they're not hiring you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what does an engagement look like? I mean, how long is it? How big is it? I mean, give us some idea of scale with any individual that shows up and says, "Yeah, I'm interested in hiring you." Yeah.
So I mean, I guess at the outset, our goal is always long-term relationships with them. We don't want any project work, if you will, or any big campaign initiatives, if you will. We really want to fill that lead generation function for a business for the long haul.
Okay.
And until we're not needed anymore. But depending on the service, on the low end, 3 months. But we've had clients for years. So.
And so, what size do they need to be of any interest to you? I mean, you say 3 months, but I mean, is there a target amount of sales that is going to be generated through this process? I mean, do you guys agree on that with each client up front, or how does that work?
So if they're similar to another client that we have or have had, we can make a pretty good guess on what the results are going to be. Some of them, if they're kind of a unique business, we don't have any history on anything similar, it's an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time we have a decent idea. But as far as the size of we don't really base it on the size of the company. I mean, obviously it's got to work for their budget, but the things we look for, our first question is, are you committed to growth? I mean, do you really need to grow? Do you have to grow? And is what you're doing right now getting that done? If not, then we should talk. If what you're doing now is working for your growth, then why add us?
Yeah.
So we really look for people who are committed to growing their company, and they know they need help.
Yeah. So I have an acquaintance I know who used not the same kind of service that you have, but he used something with LinkedIn where somebody would manage his LinkedIn profile and account and, get content pushed out, all this kind of thing to try and generate phone calls. And so he said it worked amazingly, and he had to turn it off, stop it, because it worked. I was like, wait a minute, you're kidding me, right? And he's like, no, I couldn't handle the volume of incoming calls and business, so I had to quit. I got a few deals from it, and because I got those deals, I was so busy I didn't have time for the new calls coming in. So from your perspective, that's kind of a worst case scenario. What you do works really well, but they can't deliver because they don't have the staff to do so, or the will, or whatever, the systems and processes. How do you make sure that your client is really set up for what you're about to deliver?
Yeah, we've had that happen where we're too successful, and then they're looking, well, why do I need to keep paying for this? If they got me what I wanted, now I'm done with them. We try to manage that in the questioning. I mean, I think when people come to us, a lot of times their immediate need, their bottleneck, if you will, if you know the theory of constraints, is sales. They think, this is what I need right now.
Right.
But as soon as they have the sales, the bottleneck jumps to somewhere else, either quoting or machine time or people or capital.
Yeah, delivery, whatever.
It jumps to somewhere else. So we look for people who can operate a business. So as part of our questioning, we try to flush that out.
Yeah.
Can you really handle growth? Is one of the things. Everybody says yes.
Yeah.
But if they haven't done it in the past, if they haven't really had good growth, then that might be a red flag.
So I mean, if you're working with somebody and they, I don't know, let's just say they have $5 million a year in sales, and they have 100 people in the company, and I don't even know if I'm making up numbers here, but they don't have, in your opinion, the right mix of people to. I mean, how far do you go into their operation to make sure they're going to be able to handle it?
We try to stay in our lane. There's a lot of people out there to help with lean consulting or process improvement or more traditional operational type stuff. We try to stay in our lane of the sales office, if you will.
Yeah.
So once it gets into quoting, we kind of want to be hands off at that point.
Yeah.
Anything beyond that, administrative or ordering materials or any of the shop floor stuff. There's a lot of people out there that are really good at helping in those challenges.
Yeah, I would think you'd need to partner with somebody like that can sort of help them get prepared to deal with this. Because, I mean, it's kind of like when somebody goes on Shark Tank, one of the first things that they are told is make sure your website is ready for the volume that you're going to get of everybody in the world, hitting that, trying to look you up and decide whether or not they want to buy something. And, they always talk about how it crashes and all that. So, they're trying to get them to do that before they ever show up on the show. It seems like in your situation, that's kind of something similar that they need to be prepared for. So maybe partnering with some of those process people, I'm sure that's something that you guys have already done, but that seems like something that is kind of a joint sell in a way almost.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that we try to help with that we don't charge for, and mainly just making introductions to people who are really skilled in the other challenges that we don't help with.
Yeah. I have a couple friends that are sort of the process people, Jonathan King, Charlene Aldridge. They're both people that really focus on process for companies, for manufacturers, and for suppliers to manufacturers and all that kind of thing. And it's interesting to hear them talk about how they manage their consulting assignments and what the constraints are. You talked about the constraint theory, and there's always, and the moving of that constraint over time from one department to another, depending on where they are in their cycles, is pretty interesting. All right, we're going to take another quick break. We will be right back after this. Welcome back to the Next Level Show. Talking to Gabe Draper of Factur. Go to check them out on the website at bethefactor.com. So whenever you guys started the company, what surprised you about the way, what kind of support did you get from people, or what surprised you most when you started doing this, either from your customers or from the manufacturers or whatever?
Support-wise, I would say initially we had a lot of people who, I don't know, they just wanted to help. We had people that wanted to, in the referral groups, they just wanted to be a part of it, and they totally weren't qualified, but they just wanted to give us money to try to help us.
Really? So, I mean, they just hired you then?
No, I mean, we kind of got out early on. You need money coming in.
Yeah.
So we would get out of our lane a little bit. We had one of my old Draper manufacturing customers is a diesel engine manufacturer, and they sell to guys who like diesel trucks. They sell diesel truck components. It's like not the target that we state that we help you get into, but they just wanted to be a part of it, and so we let them in because they were buddies and things like that. The old machine tool manufacturer Herco that I used to use at my old shop. They gave us free space for a couple years to meet.
Oh wow!
Things like that where people just they believed in our ideas, and they thought we really do need somebody who's focused on helping job shops and small suppliers go out there and get new business.
I mean, that's awesome, because when people believe in you and Caleb enough to start handing you stuff like that, a free place to office or, to meet or whatever, that really is an endorsement of you. And it's cool when they are just saying, hey, I like the idea so much. I want to be a part of it. I just kind of, it's kind of like groupies in a way. I just like the music so much. I want to be around it. That's funny. Well, and so what surprised you that didn't happen?
I think our biggest surprise or maybe frustration is when we've got clients that just they just resist doing the right things with their sales. You would think that it would be just natural for business owners to want to have a healthy pipeline and focus on sales and grow revenue. And I think that for some of them, and I'm painting with a broad brush here, I don't mean to, because we've got great clients who really embrace the sales process. But so we've just been surprised at how resistant they are to just do normal sales stuff, like meet with new people or, go out to networking events and just kind of put yourself out there to try to, get some lines in the water and reel some new fish in.
Do you feel like that's mainly because they're very reactionary instead of proactive and setting up their processes?
I think a couple things. One, we're usually dealing with very technically minded people, and I think they just naturally gravitate towards the technical stuff that happens in the shop. Solving technical engineering problems. They love that stuff. That's where they shine.
Right.
And the sales stuff, that they don't enjoy it as much, so I think they just naturally gravitate away from it. Also, in manufacturing, you've got a dynamic where in good times, demand finds capacity. So, if big customers need machined parts, they're going to find a shop who has the capability of machining those parts. So it comes to them in really good times. The work comes to them, and so some companies get used to that, where they think my business will grow without me trying on the sales front. The problem is, it's not always good times, and that maxes out at some point. You gotta push to grow your business, which goes back to our question about, are you committed to growing your business?
Yeah. It's interesting because I hear this across every industry. I mean, retail, for example. I mean, a retailer, somebody opens up a, whatever kind of store, and they lease space, they get all their inventory, they put up their sign, they open the doors and wait. And they wait for people to show up. I've had several clients that were chiropractors, for example. I've probably worked with maybe half a dozen chiropractors. Only one of them is still in business today. And it's because that guy didn't just open the doors, put up the sign, and wait for people to walk in the door. He got out in the community. He was, getting out there, talking to people, giving speeches, talking to business groups, talking to the PTA. I mean, he talked to anybody who would listen to him. He would put up a booth and all kinds of health fairs and everything else. But the point was, he was out there going out and grabbing and bringing people in, offering an opportunity, an incentive for people to then come and see him for his service. And so, it's amazing to hear in manufacturing that kind of the same thing happens. If I'm so good at doing whatever it is I do, people are going to find me. Well, maybe, but maybe not, and maybe not in the quantities necessary to keep you alive.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we find a lot of businesses that they have been reacting to the market, not really going outbound or being proactive in growing their sales. And one of the biggest things the problems that we see which is what my problem was customer concentration or industry concentration. That's super common, where people they got their start because they had a relationship at Nestle or Honda or Lockheed or someplace, where that relationship turned into an opportunity, which was the inkling of a business, and then they just grew that relationship and added in other stuff, but they were really set up to serve this one relationship.
Yeah,
and that's toxic. I mean, that has a shelf life and an expiration date for most businesses.
I mean, I have a good friend who was in that exact same business. I mean that situation, I should say, 90% of his income comes from one client. And really, it's all based on one person at that client. And I'm like, dude, that guy gets hit by a bus tomorrow, you have no business.
Yeah.
Because whoever replaces him is going to come with his own or her own relationship, and it's not you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you look long term, they're not going to be able to sell that business. The asset they think they have is what I call their IRA. I'm relying on an auction. Like, they're going to get asset value for that business. They're not going to get what they think they're going to get.
Wow. Interesting. Well, so if you could start your business over, what would you do differently? What have you learned that could have helped you?
That's a good one. I think
you said something about manufacturers reps or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people put us in the manufacturers reps box. They perceive us to be kind of like that. And there's a lot of good reps out there, but I think that model doesn't work for a lot of clients. I think we've structured our services differently to kind of address a lot of the challenges that companies realize with manufacturers reps. And I think early on we were kind of really led with the anti-manufacturers rep. Not that we were disparaging of them, but we really wanted to say, hey, we're different.
Yeah,
than this.
That's not what we are.
And so we, when people wanted that kind of relationship with us, we just said no. In hindsight, I think we should have been a little looser on that, because I think that could have provided some income earlier that we could have used to maybe develop our more aspirational services quicker.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing I would change, and that's on me. Caleb wanted to do that, and I was kind of like, no.
So you were the problem.
yeah, that's fully on me. That'd be one thing I would change. But it's hard to say. What we're doing now. I mean, we're at capacity with our with a few of our services, and so we've got some demand. We've got a lot of demand for what we offer. So it's hard to say that we're doing things.
Yeah.
We're not doing the right things.
Yeah, I mean, in the early stages, maybe that would have been good, but in the long run, maybe it was best not to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would think that one of the constraints on your business would be conflicts of interest. So what I mean by that is if you have a supplier of a particular, product or service that's trying to reach a certain, let's call it the auto industry, you can't do a bunch of the same competitors at the same time, right?
For sure.
I mean, that would be a big problem if they all found out about that and they all dumped you.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, we don't do that. I mean, that's part of our onboarding is we make sure that it's not competitive with any of our existing clients. Just be one, it's not the right thing to do, but two, it makes everything challenging.
Yeah.
The good thing is most people, they say they do this, but they really have a sweet spot within that. If you look at the bullseye, they say they do 3 rings, but their sweet spot is the bullseye. So we drilled down on that. Like at one point we had 4 machine shops as clients, all in the Indiana area, but they were different. One was a high volume, small parts. One was bigger, low volume parts. One was medical only. So it's niche. They're not going after the same thing. So we look for those.
Yeah.
For us, it's really good when they're complementary but not competitive because the data sets are very similar. So a lot, like we've got an injection molder. We've also got a client that makes the molds for injection molding. So they're going after the exact same target for 2 different things. So we can use that data set over and over again. So.
Interesting. So we've talked about in your services that you have the groups, the networking groups. You have the research and calling groups. What other kind of services do you have? Do you do anything with email?
Yeah. So our kind of our latest and greatest service that we're most excited about is our email prospector. And essentially what that is we do research on the companies that are out there and the contacts within those companies, and then we prospect them over email on behalf of our clients.
Okay.
So and it's like turbo boosters for their lead generation. It's like the best bang for the buck that they can get.
So is that instead of the calling or is that in addition to?
It's instead of the calling.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's really successful.
It's a lighter version of our full outsource prospecting service, but we're having a terrific success with it, and it's a great bang for the buck.
That's interesting you say that because I would think that everybody gets so much email that they hit the delete button practically before they finish reading the subject line.
No, I mean we've got technology and processes to deal with that as a part of the service. But I mean essentially the first challenge is when we're targeting a company, we already have a good idea that they're buying what our client is selling. Mm-hmm. So like one of our clients, they sell plastic pallets. So that's good for like pharmaceutical and food and beverage.
Okay.
So, we already know they're using plastic pallets. The challenge is, are you the guy that buys the plastic pallets? Do you have pains with where you're getting those, or is there any gain by adding our client in? So we've already got a good idea. So, like I'm a cyclist. If somebody called me up and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about bikes," I'd be like, "Yeah, let's talk about bikes."
Yeah,
I like talking about bikes. So when we're targeting people that we know they're buying what our client has to offer, and we find the right person, like it's an easy conversation.
Yeah.
It's a very
they're already
objective
interested.
Conversation.
Very cool. Well, Gabe, thanks for being the guest today. Sorry, we're going to have to cut it off now, but listeners, please go to bethefactor.com to learn more about the company. And for the show, go to thenextlevelshow.com, and you can find us on podcast and YouTube by searching The Next Level Show. We'll be back next week with another great guest.